Today on Locked On Rockies, they did it. It might have felt like they have been this way the entire season, but now it is official. The Colorado Rockies have the worst record in all, not just the National League, all of baseball.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock On Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 9th day of May in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, you are in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day is talk Rockies baseball, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk, also on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show, just like the Suki Sensei, DW Drums, I should say, and Eric Everhart. We're going to answer and look at some of their jobs, the same as TKO Poe as well. I finally read that username right. For some reason, it dawned on me correctly when I was out of town over the weekend reading some of your comments. So dive in a couple of comments here on today's show. We're also going to talk about rock bottom. I mean, here it is. This is it. I mean, doesn't get much worse than worst in baseball. So we'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we dive into everything today, today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go is the fast-paced game that lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Here it is. There is what else is there? What did you see from the game last night that you haven't seen and heard me talk about now for over a month? This team, until later in the game, I will say, let's start here with a positive thing. The Rockies go down big early. Basically, anytime I see the Rockies go down by more than 3, this year I'm basically putting it as an L. It's just my doubts in this team's ability to come back and cover those leads of more than 2 runs. I just don't have any confidence in their abilities to do it right now because they're not performing. I don't have any confidence in this team to do what I think this team can do because they're not doing it. And it's now been a month plus of this team underperforming. I don't think this team is the worst team in baseball. I really don't think so. I think that there is talent on this team that would help make this team be a better team. And I think that this team has wasted so many opportunities this year where they could be a better team. But until you stop going down by 6 or 7 in the second inning, or when you go down and you can't do much on offense here, I think an important thing to look at when you're looking at 2 teams that are struggling. Last night's game is a perfect example. The Rockies and the Giants end up being separated, I believe, by 1 hit in that game. The Rockies still lose that game by 2. The point is, when you're watching that game, the Giants capitalized on situations. The Rockies had multiple situations in that game in which they could get back. They got some runs, especially from some of the younger guys, but Brendan Rodgers, it is unacceptable to be hitting the way he's hitting. Him especially. He needs to be someone that shows us that he can be the consistent ball player that we've been waiting for him to be. To roll into 2 double plays in scoring situations just ain't cutting it. And again, it's a matter of watching this team. And yes, there's some stuff brewing when they start scoring and the young guys are showing a little bit of energy, but it's just flat, boring, uninteresting baseball. This team does have fight. I'm sure this team, they're professionals, but this team is incredibly boring to watch, not just because they're losing, but because of the energy level, because of getting down by 6 runs, because of the performance. It's just crappy. That's really the only way to say it. It's not that enjoyable to watch. It's not that enjoyable to watch in the sense of, man, I'm just a little baffled at how bad they are, how underprepared they look. The Giants, in the same amount of hits, scored 8 runs and did the damage. The Rockies only managed 6, and that was because Elias Diaz got a hold of one on a hanging pitch in the bottom of the 9th. That game easily could have ended up an 8-4 ball game with the Rockies missing out on back-to-back walks to start the bottom of the ninth when they needed it. That's the type of stuff. The Giants are struggling this year and have been struggling lately, but they're not struggling. They haven't been struggling the whole year. This is the exact type of series they're looking for to get back on track. The Rockies have almost generated the same amount of hits as the Giants yesterday, but still not as the same amount of runs. That shows you the issues that this team has with being consistent, being clutch, being able to score runs. When you can't score runs and when you can't score runs consistently, you're going to lose the boat races. And the secret to the success for the Colorado Rockies is you have to win those. The Rockies have to be the team that's winning the shootouts at Coors Field, being the team that jumps ahead early and not being the team that's falling behind so much so early. The Rockies have earned the last spot, the bottom of the barrel in baseball. Their play has been nothing short of incredibly disappointing and a massive letdown, and reality brings a lot of confusion to the future of the franchise and what you're going to do, who you're going to stick with, and your overall confidence in some of these young guys, including some young guys that got here in some significant ways. I'll dive into a question here from the live from the listener here from the Suki Sensei. Paul, longtime listener, first time commenter. Love the content, man. As a lifelong Rockies fan, I feel the pain here. Thank you so much for the support there. Really do appreciate that. But what are your thoughts on Monty at this point? I want him to succeed, but the extreme pull and lack of power is deeply concerning. Realistic chance he'll get traded and find a home that uses analytics that can help him actually succeed. I think the interesting thing about Montero, because I something has to be different with him. I mean, at this point, while his the first years and the way the Rockies have handled Montero are suspect and questionable at best anyway, just like how they've handled a lot of their prospects when they bring them up. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for the power. I'm still waiting for the 4-hole hitting Monty. I'm still waiting for the Montero that was the crown jewel of the Nolan Arenado trade. At this point, I don't think that Eludes Montero has done enough to make you completely solidified that he is the future for you. If Hunter Goodman can play first and can provide the power and can flash a little bit more than Montero, mixed in with the fact that you have the ever-looming possibility of Chris Bryant returning to baseball God knows when, Montero is in an interesting spot. Montero is right up there with Brendan Rodgers, and you need to show me something. I talked a lot of hype about Brendan Rodgers, and I've talked about Montero as well. The pop is possible, but you got to hit the ball. You got to be able to be a factor, and I think he's shown a better approach lately, and I've liked some of the stuff that we've seen. But right now, in 109 at-bats this year, he's got 22 hits, 2 home runs, 11 RBI. He's batting .202 with an OBP of 252 and an OPS of 527. I mean, I just, there's nothing that encouraging. And you go further back right now, last 7 games, 148 average, 179 OBP, a slugging of 259. Let's go last 15 games, 204 average, 259 OBP, a slugging of 333. In that time, he struck out 13 times. I mean, he has as many strikeouts this year as he does hits. So could he benefit from going somewhere else? Absolutely. I think that argument is easy to make. Anybody can. This current state of the Colorado Rockies, this state of the organization, heck, it feels like just about anybody would leave Colorado and be better. Because the organization from within continues and remains to be broken and remains to be the biggest issue with this franchise. I have more confidence that these players on the field are actually better than what they are, but I have zero confidence in this team actually preparing them and getting them ready to be major league athletes and ready to compete at the major league level. This team is outmatched. This team is outmatched on the pitching mound. This team is outmatched on offense. And surprisingly, a team that was supposed to be, in my opinion, one of the best defenses in baseball, they're outmatched on defense. Every single aspect of the game, the rest of the league is better. And that is exemplified by the fact that the Rockies have the worst record in baseball. Our friend of the show, Jake Shapiro, he said on X, there are teams that might get 30 wins before the Rockies get 10. This team is in such desperate need of change It's unreal to just sit and trot out there the same coaching staff, the same philosophy, and the same lineups. I know that they're mixing and matching and putting some guys in here, and sometimes it's Stallings and Diaz, and sometimes Goodman and Beck both get in the game. Until they go on a stretch, until they win back-to-back ball games, something they have now, it has now taken over 2 months to do of baseball time. That's over 60 games. Nearly. I guess maybe I shouldn't completely say that because I don't know exactly when it was in September of last year, but we're on May 9th. The Rockies are, I believe, 1-9 in their last 10. Why am I to have any sort of confidence in this team? Actually, you know what? Let's take the break and then we'll talk about the rebuild stuff because a couple of commenters yesterday were like, "Are you sure it's a rebuild?" I'm not. But there's elements of it, and there's stuff that makes you think that it could be a rebuild from the Rockies. But it's one thing to be rebuilding, like I said yesterday. But it's another thing to be historically bad, franchise record bad, and the Rockies right now are historically bad. Let's talk about where we're at in a little bit more, and we will talk about some of the bright spots from the game last night because some of the young guys did show up, and that game could have easily just been another shutout blowout. But the Rockies did fight back and did have some nice at-bats there throughout that game after the big inning there in the second. Actually, if you take away the second inning, the Rockies would have won that ball game yesterday. But we'll talk about that and more coming up in segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook, has you covered for all your sports betting needs during what is gotta be one of the most exciting times on the sports calendar. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. And our Denver Nuggets need it. Ooh, I clicked the wrong thing. There we go. There's the right one. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. That's FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. We're also brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go, the classic twist on your favorite game. And you already have heard me talk about Monopoly Go, but I got to let you know more about it because there's so much more going on in Monopoly Go. You can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. This is the Locked On Rockies, and we got crossovers on the brain because I believe we're going to be crossing over and previewing the Rangers series with Bryce Patrick of Locked On Rangers tomorrow. We'll be doing that. So stay tuned for that. Of course, find us on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel where you can be part of the show. Hey, a reminder, Rockies action available to you all season long on Sirius XM and the Sirius XM app. If you want to get the day baseball today, remember early game, 1:10 start today. You can check that out on Sirius XM or the Sirius XM app. Just search Colorado Rockies and you'll be taken to where you need to go. You can also check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 live stream on YouTube. It's our 24/7 sports streaming channel with all your local hosts breaking down all the big stories in sports. Check that out as well. Okay. So are the Rockies rebuilding? Are the Rockies, it depends on who you ask. It depends on the way you look at it. And I think if you ask the Rockies, while they'll never admit to using that word that they hate, I think that they would sit and say that that is kind of the type of the philosophy that they're going with. We're using younger guys. We're seeing what they have. But fans aren't buying it here. Eric Everhart says, it's not a rebuild. Why throw money at Bryant? And DW Drum says, hard disagree, they're rebuilding. They're just farting around aimlessly. Rebuilding would mean trading useful pieces for prospects, fully committing to playing young guys. They're just doing whatever out there and saying guys have to play better. Same crap you always get from Rockies management. I mean, it is true. It's plain and simple. The flat, weak, boilerplate, generic excuses for the Rockies are well done and over with. I don't care if that's just baseball. I don't care if the guys just have to play better. That's not good analysis. That's not good analysis by your front office, by your analytics teams, by that. I want to know exactly what you're seeing and what your problems are, and exactly what you see in these young guys and things that you think are going to bring hope. Because the question, why throw money at Bryant? Well, the answer was, that one was simple. I mean, there is a documented history of the Colorado Rockies being obsessed with Chris Bryant. Especially Dick Monfort in the wake of the Nolan Arenado thing. Couldn't have the team without a superstar. No, we got to have that MVP, baby. Got to bring him on there. Got to bring that name. And what has it done? Well, it has now saddled the Rockies with an untradeable contract for a guy that has not been able to stay healthy for significant portions of the season. Chris Bryant has now been missing for over 20 days now since he's been on the IL. Again. And this was just IL stint number 1 on the season. I think we can go ahead and safely say we're due for another one here in July, and he'll end his season early in the end of August. Is it a rebuild? I don't really know. Some people will tell you it is. I think that the first signals of the rebuild, of it actually being a rebuild, came last year. If the Rockies are truly going to buy into the rebuild stuff, they will make some trades. I don't think the Rockies can navigate. If the Rockies go to the trade deadline this year and they don't do anything, including, I think, trading some of these names that we've come to like, it's a mistake. This team needs help. This team isn't good enough. This team doesn't have enough strength behind them in the farm system. This team has a long way to go. And the thoughts of 2025 being the first competitive season for this new core of Rockies is now looking like a crazy take from me. I mean, heck, most of the stuff I said in the offseason about being hyped up for this team looks like a mistake right now because of the underperformance of this team. But if this team does ship off a couple of players here at the trade deadline, you can sit there and say that they are still factoring in that rebuild, especially if they blow it up big time, which in reality they should do. Maybe it's a little early or whatnot, but I don't think it should be that crazy to look at trading Ryan McMahon, Brendan Rodgers, Elias Diaz, Jacob Stallings, and some of your decent bullpen arms. I don't think it's that outlandish to try to get as much as possible, because if you're going to continue at the rate of being the worst team in baseball, there's no sense in sticking with this lineup. There's no sense in sticking with this roster. But what do the Rockies love? Loyalty, baby. That is the currency for the Colorado Rockies. So who am I to say that they'll trade anybody that they've signed to these extensions? They love these guys. I don't know if the Rockies necessarily can move on from some of these guys. Personally, I don't think they want to trade Ryan McMahon and Brendan Rodgers and Elias Diaz because they've been great Rockies. They look at these Rockies. You know the names. You know these guys. You love Rymack. And it's nothing against those guys. I think, again, when you listen to my show, I think that there is good talent on this Colorado Rockies team. I again question the organization's ability to get the most out of that talent, because I'm seeing it happen in other places. I'm seeing players leave and have success. I'm seeing a Rockies team trend down and down and down and down, and now have hit the bottom of baseball. So is that just that the talent isn't good enough? I don't believe that. I don't believe that the Rockies are a worse team than the White Sox. I don't believe the Rockies are a worse team than some of the teams they've played this year. But when the team goes out there and looks like a lifeless corpse on the field playing baseball to start the games, where is the confidence supposed to come from? because the players are certainly not getting the confidence from anyone within their locker room or within their organization. There is no one, no coach, no manager. There is nobody in that Rockies coaching or managerial staff that is pumping up this team and getting them ready to go. Plain and simple, this team looks underprepared every single time they step out on the field. They look and they feel like they're already down by 2. And that's at home. That's at home as well. But I'll give it props. Last night, I'll give them props. There were some players that wanted to do some stuff. Charlie Blackmon had a vintage Charlie Blackmon day. Ezekiel Tovar, a couple of good at bats. Elias Diaz was great yesterday as well. But Brendan Rodgers is 1 for 5. You know, like that type of stuff kills you. Ryan McMahon, 0 for 4 with a walk. In situations that they need these guys to come up big. I mean, there's just no clutch with the Rockies. Hunter Goodman hitless, but Sean Bouchard picking up 3 hits yesterday. Brenton Doyle getting on the board. Jordan Beck picking up a couple of hits as well in the young look outfield there. I think everything has to be reevaluated. I was asked there about Montero. I don't think it shouldn't. What do you need to hold on to Montero for if you can't trade him away for something that's interesting? Because I don't necessarily. Montero doesn't even have a guaranteed spot still. I mean, it's still not a 100% thing that he's going to play every day, and then you're going to get in the way of Goodman, and then eventually Chris Bryant's going to have to come back. And maybe they'll stick him in right field again and have him get hurt instead of playing first base like they said he was going to play. So there are moves the Rockies can make. Will they make them? I don't know. I really think the best way to look at this Rockies team and everything that's going on is just you have to shrug your shoulders and just kind of go, I don't know. I don't know what the Rockies are going to do. I really don't. Because it ain't working. But again, loyalty matters more. And that is especially true. That rings especially true for the front office people and the people that are Dick Monfort yes men. Because if you're on the analytics team and you go and you tell Dick you don't like what he's doing, you coincidentally leave your job with under a year. Interesting. Let's see here. TKO Post says the Giants will sweep and Bud will still have a job. Box score in the 8th. This is from game 1. And Giants 5-0 Giants, the number 1 prospect on this powerless team who has a legit tool, which is power, still on the bench. Please, Paul, tell me how this man continues to manage this team. Please have it make sense. The Rockies love him. The Rockies love him. At this point in the season, Bud Black has not done enough to instill confidence in this team and in me as in my faith to have him be the best manager possible. I don't think that he has the ability to get the best out of these players. I certainly don't think he has the ability to get the best out of his pitchers, no matter what you think of the quality of the arm. If you're a pitching focused manager, you're supposed to be able to develop some of these guys. And Peter Lambert got shelled. 6 runs in the 2nd inning. I know Kyle Freeland's injured, but Peter Lambert was a guy that was looking at a starting rotation spot. And those are people the Rockies have stuck with. Those are the people that the Rockies have selected. Confidence in the Rockies at an all-time low for me, not going to lie. I'm at a point where I feel like a broken record on this show all the time, but it's hard not to just continue to look at what the heck is the problems and the issues with this team when they continue to be the same things that we keep bashing our heads over and over again talking about. Quick break, and then I want to talk about a surprising stat from yesterday. Coming up on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. It's got more than 3 million members, and it's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. So it could be hits, it could be strikeouts for your favorite Rockies players. It could be goals. It could be, something like assists. If you're going into the Avalanche, same with basketball. Maybe you're thinking rebounds, 3-pointers, that type of stuff. You just pick more or less on 2 or more players' stats. And like I said, watch those winnings roll in. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this basketball season as well. You can download the PrizePicks app today. That's the PrizePicks app, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a $100 first deposit match when you use code LOCKEDONMLB on the PrizePicks app. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Locked On Rockies here, segment number 3 coming your way here on today's podcast. Remember, find us on your favorite favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. We've read some comments today here on the show. A surprising stat yesterday was Charlie Blackmon just tying Nolan Arenado in terms of RBIs for total for Rockies history. And I was like, that seems a little weird. But then I had to rethink about it. Where it's like, well, Nolan Arenado, that's middle of the lineup, prime RBI generating opportunity. And of course, it was the heart of the order guy versus Charlie Blackmon, beginning of the batting order type of guy, who still was able to drive in a lot of runs, which was interesting. And I was curious. I was just curious to see like what were the differences in kind of RBI between these two players here. And it's amazing how much the Rockies miss Nolan Arenado's offensive production. I mean, when was the last time a Rocky, like 130 RBI from Arenado in 15, 133 in 16? He had 3 straight seasons of 130 RBI for the Rockies. I can't even think of the last time someone had 130. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He had 7 straight seasons of over 100 RBI from 15 to 22, not counting the pandemic shortened season in there as well. And in his quote unquote down year last year, he still drove in 93. And when I look at Charlie Blackmon's only gotten triple digit RBI once in 2017. And the closest he's come to that was back in 2019 with 86 RBI. And so, I mean, when I look at that and I hear that stat, I think, oh yeah, well, it's got to be, of course, the big thing there too is the difference in the lineup, where they're at and where they're batting. I think that's really obviously the main reason here. But man, it was just interesting here that Chuck, Arenado's been gone for 3 seasons. This is now the 4th season they're going into. So he's been gone for 3 seasons, now playing his 4th season there. And in basically 2 seasons in 2021 and 2022, Nolan Arenado has more RBI than Charlie Blackmon's last, let's see here. Basically, the last, let's see, I think it basically roughly took Chuck 3-ish seasons to do what Nolan did in 2 seasons in terms of RBI generation. And Chuck's fallen off in terms of RBI production here. I mean, since 2019, he hasn't gotten more than 80 RBI. He was close in 21 and 22, but last year only finishes with the 40 RBI. And I mean, the injury, of course, the problem the issue there. But I was just fascinated by that. And then, because you think Charlie Blackmon, you think runs scored, and then I look at this Arenado stat line, and again, it's a reminder of the type of offense the Rockies had. And I'm not even just trying to dwell on the Arenado thing. You could go and probably look at other players' RBI contributions, including Blackmon at the playoff time, and just see how much better this Rockies team was on offense. This Rockies offense does not have the firepower, and it doesn't have an Arenado quality person in terms of offensive production. Ryan McMahon is probably the most similar thing there, but I don't even think we've seen close to the same types of performances from Ryan McMahon in terms of RBI generation throughout his career. Ryan McMahon hasn't hit 100 RBIs ever. The most RBI he's ever driven in is 86 in his career. And I mean, now he's played for the Rockies for 8 seasons. And Arenado, in terms of offensive output during the times of the Rockies, it puts Ryan McMahon to shame. I mean, Nolan Arenado the defense is one thing, but the dip in offense from the playoffs is because of, I mean, look at it. No one in the post Arenado era has come close to generating Arenado levels of offense. And that's a problem, a massive problem for the Colorado Rockies. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us and making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB. For all your playoff coverage, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, got you covered. Come on, Nuggets. Fingers crossed they pull off some history here. But you can check them out there and stay up to date with all things football. Locked On Broncos, Locked On Buffs, got you covered there. We got you covered with the Rockies here on Locked On Rockies. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.